Hello guys, today we're going to be working with pivot charts. Now pivot charts are a godsend because they allow you to create charts as fast and as simple and as easy as if you were creating a pivot table, alright? Before pivot charts existed, you actually had to create a table of your own, and that took a while, and then you had to convert it to a chart. Now with pivot charts, you can do that. Well, you can pretty much skip all of those steps. If you know how to use pivot tables, pivot charts are going to be essential for you. And if you don't know how to use pivot tables and you're watching this video, don't worry, we're going to get through that. And at the end of the video, you're going to be able to do some amazing charts in your Excel. Alright guys, let's get to talking about pivot charts. They are like a turbocharged version of normal charts. In fact, you shouldn't be doing normal charts. Everything should be pivot chart, unless it's necessary to do a normal chart. Alright, so let's get started. Why is it called a pivot chart? Well, because the basis of the chart is a pivot table. If you notice, I have here my restaurant table where I'm going to talk, well, I have a bunch of data about restaurant sales. Each line represents a meal or a drink that was sold. If you have already watched my pivot table video, then yeah, you already know this table. Now, guys, this table here is going to show us the total amount of sales, say for example in price or in amount or by waiter or whatever. We just need to be able to condense it and understand the data behind it. Now guys, before we start, let me just take a couple. All of the titles are up here and they head out to the right. And secondly, and most important, all of the data is recorded line by line, and it continues all the way down. I have no jumps, I have no breaks in between the data, all right? Notice how I'm just scrolling down, and there's absolutely no break here for, say, for example, the table that belongs to January, and the table for February, and the table for March. No, none of that nonsense. It's all just continues all the way down. If you have a normalized table like this one, Excel is going to do all of the heavy lifting for you, all right? Making your pivot chart is going to be as simple as 1, 2, 3. If you do not have a normalized table like this one, then you are a goner, okay? Because you have to fix the table. Excel can't understand anything unless it's presented in a table like this one, all right? So make sure that you get this. I already repeated this in my pivot tables video. I'm going to repeat it again in my normal tables video, but this is so important. So many people I see working with just whatever table they cooked up without any idea of what they were doing. No, guys, remember, it's always important that you present tables in this format. All right, enough ranting. Let's get started with the pivot charts thing, all right? So guys, in order to get started with pivot charts, for starters, you have to know they're only available in Office 2010 or higher. So if you go over here to where it says data, to where it says insert, and you look here, this is where we have all of our stuff, all right? This is where we have all of our stuff. So you have to find this little button here that says pivot chart. So click on it and insert pivot chart. Now, before making sure that you click on it, make sure that you have one of the cells of the table selected, okay? So click here, and it's going to ask you, well, where is the data from the pivot chart coming from? Notice it automatically selected everything from A1 all the way out to L30,133, all right? And I'm going to ask for it to be placed in a new worksheet. Yeah, that's fine. Let's press OK. And there we go. Notice that we got two little items here. First one is this. This is my pivot chart, but it will always come linked with a pivot table because we always need a pivot table to feed a pivot chart, okay? So make sure that you keep that in mind. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, but normal charts don't need pivot tables. Yeah, but you need to set up a table of your own, so you're not saving anything with that. So let's get started. Notice that pivot charts are similar to pivot tables. However, instead of having rows and columns, they have legends and axes. Values and filters are the same thing. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with pivot tables, it's really simple to work. Now, guys, just one thing that I want you to note. As soon as I click outside of my pivot chart, this little bar over here disappears. And as I click back on my pivot chart, the little bar reappears. However, if you were to click up here on the X button, no matter how furiously you click on the pivot chart, it's not going to show up again. You have to come here, right-click on the pivot chart, and then tell it to show the field list. All right. Now I mentioned this because every single time at least one of my classroom students manages to mess this up. All right. So make sure that you don't click here, and if you do, you know how to get back to normal. Okay, so let's get started. My goal right now is to show sales by month, all right, sales by month. So we have to apply the same sort of reasoning as we would for a pivot table. which two fields here are going to be useful for sales by month? Well, we have date, that's probably where we're going to extract month, and price is probably where we're going to extract the sales. How do I know that? Well, let's get back to our table. If I were to ask you for the sales for order number 1, which is this one, the total sales in dollar amounts, then you'd probably, just out of sheer logic, you'd go ahead and add up all the prices of everything that was sold. All right, so the prices of everything that was sold was $222. All right, and that is going to be pretty much the total sales for order number 1. So the key is to add up all the prices of everything that was sold. So let's start with that. I'm going to grab price and I'm going to drag it down to the values box. All right. Why the values box? That's what Excel uses in order to perform calculations. Those calculations, say for example, are going to be the sum of price. So right now it's giving me one big fat bar right around $2 million. And in my pivot table, I also have the result, $2,051,629. So far, so good. This is showing me the total sales. Now I want the total sales by month. So let's select our pivot chart again and let's select date. I'm going to grab date and you're going to drag it all the way down to axis. Now, if you have Excel 2016 or Excel 2019, it's going to show up something like this. Notice how it automatically grouped everything by years, quarters, and then date. If I wanted to look at, say for example, I'm showing right here the sales for 2014 and the sales for 2015. If I want to look at something a little bit more detailed, then I'd go ahead and click on this little plus button right here. Whenever you press this plus or minus button, you would be expanding or contracting the hierarchy of dates. So we have years, then I press a plus and we get to quarters, and then we press plus and we get to quarters and months. All right. Now, say for example, quarters is not something that I'm really going to use and it's not something that I'm really going to need. So I just go ahead and grab quarters from here, click on it and drag it outside of the bar into the spreadsheet. Notice how we get this little X icon. That means whenever I release the button, quarters is going to be sent into the never-ending void of oblivion. All right. And there we go. We've got rid of quarters. So now that we have a chart that looks somewhat like we wanted, we have sales by month, then that's it. Okay, that's everything that there is to pivot charts. As far as construction goes, you just go ahead and drag things down. Now guys, remember, whenever you drag an item down to values, it's going to perform an operation. It's pretty much the meat, the filler of the chart. Anything that you drag down to axis is going to show up here, and we still have 2 items to go, legend and filters. All right, so right here we have total sales by month. But say that isn't enough for your boss. Your boss wants to know the difference between drinks and meals. So let's grab the type field, drag it down here to legend, and that is going to create, that's going to separate our bars. Our bars are now going to be drink and meal, drink and meal, drink and meal. All right, where the meals, the larger bars, are the orange ones and the drinks are the blue ones. And say we want to be able to filter everything out by waiter. So I'm going to go ahead and drag the waiter bar down here to filters. And notice how it shows up in a way that's really, really unwieldy. It's right here and right here in the pivot table. So if I want to figure out the total sales by month for Valentina, I'd click here and I'd select Valentina. Now, honestly, personally, I really dislike that way of doing things, especially because when you present this chart, you're probably going to get rid of all the gray boxes, all right? So there's an alternative. Remove waiter from filters, remove the waiter from filters, send it away, and let's go ahead up here to Analyze and select Insert Slicer, all right? Make sure that your pivot chart is selected, otherwise you won't get the Analyze button. Go ahead and select Insert Slicer, and then select waiter from here. Press OK. Okay, guys, here we have a slicer. Maybe you're familiar with it, maybe not, but this slicer is going to affect your pivot chart. If I want to check the sales for Valentina, I just click here, and there we go. Our pivot chart has changed. Guys, this is really important for us, for you to know, because slicers are the future, okay? They don't add any practical value to your spreadsheet if you already know how to use filters, but man, are they really fancy for presentations. Bosses love them, especially those that know jack about Excel. I mean, slicers are like a godsend for them because it's like they have access to filters, but in a very play school fashion, all right? It's very kindergarten-y. the slicer. So you can create dashboards, you can create presentations, anything that you want. So pretty much you can add slicers for any field that you have, and it won't detract from the presentation of your pivot chart. All right, guys, with that said, let's do something else. If we wanted to start adding stuff like fancy presentation, all the bells and whistles, you know, to your pivot chart, there are several things that you have to know. First, say, for example, all of the data right here is supposed to be in dollar amounts. However, we haven't been able to add dollar amounts. How would you go about doing that? Modifying the original pivot table. Select all of the data in the pivot table, convert to dollar amounts, and notice how your pivot chart automatically is converted to dollar amounts. Okay, that's for number one. Number two is the pivot chart is composed of a bunch of elements that you can modify with regards to format. Now, most of them are going to be available. Notice how when the pivot chart is selected, you get this little green cross right here. Click on it, and here you can add a bunch of stuff. Say, for example, the axis titles, the chart title, the data labels, the data table, the error bars, and the trend line. Now, guys, I'm not going to go deep into that right here because it's a lot of ground to cover, and it's pretty much, I mean, you could pretty much learn it if you just clicked on everything and assume the consequences. All right, just click on everything, mess up your chart, and play around with it a little bit. Now, the thing that I do want you to know is you can make your chart look pop. You can make your chart pop from the spreadsheet using this little design tab right here. Okay, so say, for example, if you want your chart to look all fancy and nice, you could go to design, select this little button here, and select something out of this menu. Now, these are the presets that Microsoft offers you. So say, for example, I like this one for some reason. Okay, now you can click here and you can make the chart pop. And say, for example, these gray boxes, they're ruining everything. So you can just go ahead, right click on any one of the gray boxes and look for this hide all field buttons on chart. Hide all field buttons. Oh, come on. Right click, hide all field buttons. And there we go. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so your chart looks fine, and you've added all the bells and whistles that you wanted. You have your slicer. What else is there? Well, so maybe you didn't want a bar chart. Maybe you want a line chart or something. Let's go ahead and click on design, and here's this little button called change chart type. You click on it here, and it's going to give you all of the possible options that you have for that. Okay, usually it's just column and line. If you go ahead and select something else like pie, it's going to create some horrible Lovecraftian mess of, I mean, that's unreadable. That's impossible to read. The horizontal bars are fine, and some others, they just can't be created out of pivot charts. Say, for example, the scatter map. You need a normal vanilla table in order for the scatter plot to work. Okay, a lot of those that are like down below here, you can't make them work with just a pivot chart. However, in real life, most of the time, you're just going to be using columns and lines. Okay, so say, for example, I just select line right here, press OK, and there we go. We have our line chart. It's not as easy to read. I would really have preferred bar charts for this, but again, now you know how to change chart type. Now, guys, one of the cardinal rules in Excel charts is just because you can doesn't mean that you should. All right. The main problem with charts is they are so easy to use that a lot of people that shouldn't be making charts end up doing charts. All right, guys. In the online course, we're going to cover not just how to make a chart, but making an intelligent chart, all right, that follows all the rules and guidelines of proper data visualization, so that you can deliver an intelligent chart that tells a story and actually has a meaningful impact. It's not just there for filler. Okay. All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure that you practice your pivot charts over and over again, along with your pivot tables, and I'll see you in the next video. Do you want to be an Excel god? Our online course will turn you into an Excel master in only 90 days. Excel is the most important tool in the office, but almost nobody knows how to use it. Most people dive right into Excel with no formal training and never use the right tools. And thus, they end up delivering messy reports that are full of mistakes, and they end up hating their jobs. In reality, Excel is really simple to use and can do your job for you, if you know how to use it. But you have to pick the right place to learn from, or you'll only end up more confused with all of the different tools and functions that Excel has to offer you. So, what can you do? Our Excel course is tailor-made for you. We're going to teach you Excel, all of Excel, using real-life examples. From simple exercises to full-fledged business case studies. Take the online course and you'll be an Excel god in only 90 days. The course consists in more than 45 lessons and 15 case studies, all with their detailed solutions completely recorded in video, and you're going to be able to access them whenever you want, wherever you want. Best of all, you're going to have lifetime access to the course, and you're going to get any of the updates that we're constantly putting out for free. Even better, when you get our course, you'll have free access to our full Visual Basic and Macros course, and also to our Power BI course, all with just one single purchase. More than 3,000 students have passed through our classrooms. We've attended companies like Kodak, IBM, Cemex, HP, Continental, DB Schenker, and more. So, if you want to absolutely master Excel, make sure that you sign up now. You will become an Excel guy. A2 Excel.